This is our representation of the new Roman Empire as a tetrarchy. These four figures are referred to as the four tetrarchs. These are the Caesar and Augustus of the tetrarchy. Now, right off the bat, these figures are not in their original location. They are now currently located on the corner of a church in Venice. I know if this is kind of bending your mind, you're like, what? What is it doing in Venice? We haven't even talked about the city of Venice. Where are we? I know. Okay, calm down. These statues are located at the corner of this massive church that we're going to look at in a couple of weeks or so. And it's in Venice. How did it get there? It got there during the Crusades, during the medieval period, which we'll get to later in the semester. So we'll see these guys again. But during the medieval period, way after the fall of the Roman Empire, these four figures were taken to Venice by the people of Venice and set up in front of their main city center so that they could be almost used as like bragging rights. Like, what's up? We got these. They were from the Roman Empire. Now we got them here in Venice. There's a lot more going on of why Venice would want to do this. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But I want you to know that this odd placement of them is because they were placed here during the medieval period. And that's not how they would have originally looked. These four figures most likely... Ooh, hold on. Here, we'll come back to that previous slide. These four figures most likely were decorative elements on columns. These columns most likely were on the outside of Diocletian's palace, and they then were transported around the empire, eventually ending up here in Venice. Now, notice the highlight I've put here. The stone that they're carved from is porphyry. Porphyry is this beautiful purple stone. It's similar to granite. It's very hard, and it has this rich, warm, reddish purple color. And this is significant because, well, purple is for important people. Remember that? Porphyry was a preferred material for imperial portraits during this time, which, I mean, makes sense, right? Purple is for important people. This purple rock, yeah, carve me out of purple rock. It was so popular that we have mined it out of existence. What? We mined all natural sources of porphyry. All the porphyry in the world has been mined out, has been carved up, is now part of portrait busts or architectural structures. It's insane to think about that, right? But it goes back to this idea of purple being a symbol of power and wealth and status. And also, many really enjoyed that kind of rusty purple in comparison to like blood, right? So here we see the porphyry has been carved to represent the four leaders of the empire, the two Augusti and the two Caesars. If we look at them in comparison to where they would have originally stood, they would have been side by side and not in this kind of awkward corner that you see them in today. Additionally, the details here, this detail here, shows you some of the elements that have been lost. So these holes here, most likely there were gold buckles or brooches inset into their hats. Their capes, those brooches, like what we saw in Caracalla, those brooches most likely were some kind of a precious material, and those have been chiseled off. see. Any other elements, any other pieces? This guy's missing a little bit of his foot there. So this is just showing you the life of these statues after they were carved. Now, I emphasize the use of porphyry because not only have we mined it out of existence, but that means that you, unless you go to a museum, you're not going to really see this porphyry, much less touch it. But if you go to Venice, or when you go to Venice, you can touch it. This is me, and yeah, I was all over I was just like, yes, 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 yes. For the most part, the people, the other tourists in the city, they don't even pay attention to this. They don't even know it's there. They definitely don't understand the significance of it. And so I just had them all to myself, and I was just rubbing all over them. And I told my friend afterwards, who's also an art historian, and she had gone to Venice before me, and she totally forgot about them, missed it completely, and she never touched it. And so I tease her to this day. I always go, oh, have you touched porphyry? It's amazing. You have to touch it. In fact, I've encouraged many of my students. Hold on one moment. Let me get those slides. This is my student, Michael. And then, you know, I had to make my aunt and uncle stand in front of them, touch them as well. I got a few more that I need to add into my lecture. And then when you go to Venice, you need to take a picture next to them. But back to them as artworks. In addition to me touching it, it's helpful to see the scale of these figures. And then in comparison to the proportions of a body. We've already looked at and considered the abstracted forms of imperial portraiture, especially in the late imperial period. When we look at these figures, and I tell you that there is a Caesar and Augustus, can you tell which one is Diocletian? No. There's no specific element identifying a single ruler. Instead, if you look at them, one has a beard and one is clean shaven. Those are the only distinctions that we see. Why is that? What does the beard and the clean shaven represent? Ah, you are so excited. You figured it out, right? So the beard, philosopher, clean shaven, soldier. Which one is the Augustus and which one is the Caesar? That's right. So the Augustus, the more learned, the wise one, he has the beard. The Caesar is clean shaven soldier. He will take command, but he is under the mentorship of the Augustus. And that's all we are able to recognize here. There's no singular person because that's not the point. The point of the tetrarchy is shared power, not the splendor and fame of one, but a united four. Keeping that in mind, how do they present themselves as rulers of this tetrarchy? Look at the body language. What do you see? Let me pull out again, hold on. So looking at the body language, how do they rule together and how do they rule us? Let's talk about what they're wearing. So if we were alive in 305 CE when these were carved, we would immediately recognize them as wearing military uniforms. Their heavy togas, those belts that carry their swords, they have those heavy army capes also. The cone or the kind of flat cap that they're wearing was something that was becoming a standard issued cap for soldiers at this time. I can't get into the history of the military costume, but if you want to know more, email me. So we would have seen them as dressed for battle, for war. What else do we see in them? Look at their hands. Yeah. So I hear one of you is saying that they're holding their swords, right? So their swords, like Caracalla, he's armed, right? Here, they're all armed, and then they're at the ready. Their hands are on their swords. They're ready to fight. So they're dressed for combat, and they're ready to strike. Strike who? Strike anybody who's against them. And then notice how they wrap their arms. Look how close they are together. So there's this unity of Augustus and Caesar, right? There's this camaraderie. When we go into a detail, let's go here again. Look at that. In terms of their eye line, their eyes are parallel. They see the same thing. They think the same thing. They are a united front, aggressive front as well. So we see this very dramatic change from the beginning of our empire. We had one leader, young and optimistic. The gesture was one of a public speaker, an orator, addressing the people, looking out, stepping forward, balance of body, balance of mind with the contrapposto. Rather than holding a weapon, he holds a scepter which helps him to delegate his power. No contrapposto. No connection with the people. Instead, it is a united front against the people. The representation of the body is short and boxy. It's abstracted. It's not about being realistic. It's about effectively representing the idea that they want to convey. Look at those exaggerated eyes, open, pious. Now you might be thinking, these guys don't look religious to me. They are pious in that they are looking for answers from the gods. Remember, for the Romans, they think happy gods, happy empire. Mad gods, bad empire. There is a lot of turmoil in the empire, and therefore they need to seek answers with the gods. So they are open for answers or solutions from the gods above. Powerful, huh? Come a long, long